Okay, let's dive right into this explainer and unpack a 3,300-year-old cold case. Today, we're covering the chapter Discovering Tut. The saga continues. Whether you're a student looking at this material for the very first time, or you just want to really nail down the details of this incredible saga, we're going to break down every crucial aspect. We're looking at a story that perfectly collides ancient historical mystery with absolutely cutting-edge modern science.
So right off the bat, how did he die and exactly how old was he when it happened? Those are the two ultimate mysteries that define this entire chapter. Ever since King Tutankhamun was pulled from his resting place in the Valley of the Kings, researchers, students, and historians have literally spent decades trying to piece together the final days of this young pharaoh. Because you have to remember, we're talking about a teenager here. Tutankhamun was the very last heir of a massively powerful family that had ruled Egypt and its empire for centuries. He was just a boy when he took the throne, and his totally unexpected death sent shockwaves through the ancient world. But crazy enough, for a really long time, his legacy was actually lost to the sands of time. Here is our roadmap for this explainer. First, the boy king's demise. Then, Carter's 1922 tomb discovery. Third, a wacky royal dynasty. Fourth, the 2005 CT scan. And finally, unearthing buried mysteries.
Let's jump right into part 1, the boy king's demise, the end of an era. To really understand the modern archaeological obsession with this specific tomb, you've got to grasp the whole concept of funerary treasures. See, the ancient Egyptians believed deeply in the afterlife. So Tut was laid to rest absolutely laden with gold, and that eternal brilliance was meant to guarantee his resurrection. But they didn't just bury him with stunning gold artifacts. He was buried with everyday things he'd want in the afterlife too. We're talking board games, a bronze razor, linen undergarments, and even cases of food and wine. Which brings us to part 2, Carter's 1922 tomb discovery, unearthing the boy king.
Think of this timeline as a century-long detective story. Over the last 100 years, each major intervention completely flipped our understanding of the king. We kick off with the initial discovery in 1922, move to a huge X-ray shocker in 1968, and finally arrive at the high-tech CT scan in 2005. And honestly, archaeology itself changed substantially across those decades, shifting away from just hunting for shiny treasure to actually understanding the fascinating details of ancient life and the intriguing mysteries of death. So back in 1922, British archaeologist Howard Carter hits the absolute jackpot after years of futile searching. Despite the tomb being hastily ransacked back in antiquity, it remained the richest royal collection ever found. But Carter also found these amazing, delicate clues. When he opened the first of 3 nested coffins, he found a shroud covered with faded garlands of willow, olive leaves, wild celery, lotus petals, and cornflowers. That specific floral evidence brilliantly proved the burial had to have taken place in March or April. But then, Carter hits a literal wall. The ritual resins used during the burial had completely hardened over thousands of years. They acted like a powerful cement, literally gluing Tut to the bottom of his solid gold coffin. Carter himself actually wrote, "No amount of legitimate force could move them." Because of this, his team made a highly controversial call. They had to destructively chisel the mummy out, severing the head and nearly every major joint. Which is exactly why modern experts like Zahi Hawass noted the mummy was in terrible condition when examined decades later. All right, let's move on to part 3, a wacky royal dynasty, the strange lineage. To really get why Tut's reign mattered, you have to trace his chaotic family tree. Step 1 is Amenhotep III, Tut's father or grandfather, who ruled during a massive golden age. But then, step 2, his son Amenhotep IV takes over and kicks off one of the strangest periods in Egyptian history. He changes his name to Akhenaten, moves the religious capital, and totally shocks the country by forcing them to worship the Aten, or the sun disk. After him comes step 3, a mysterious, brief ruler named Smenkhare, who barely left a trace. And finally, step 4, young Tutankhaten takes the throne. I love this quote from Ray Johnson, the director of the University of Chicago's Research Center in Luxor. He puts it perfectly, saying this was a time when the family that had ruled for centuries was coming to an end, and Akhenaten, quote, went a little wacky. And he really did. He didn't just change religions, he actively attacked the major god Amun, smashing his images and closing his temples. It was an incredibly terrifying, culturally devastating time for the ancient Egyptians. So the boy king basically spends his short 9-year reign on cleanup duty, trying to undo all that prior wackiness.
He even changes his own name from Tutankhaten to Tutankhamun, which literally means living image of Amun, to publicly signal a return to the old gods. He oversaw a huge restoration of the old religious ways, desperately trying to heal the country. And then, right in the middle of it all, he dies unexpectedly, leaving behind the massive cold case we are looking at today.
That brings us to part 4, the 2005 CT scan, modern forensic technology. Fast forward to 2005. A portable computed tomography, or CT machine, generously donated by the National Geographic Society and Siemens, gets brought in. It creates a staggering 1,700 digital X-ray images in cross-section. The Egyptian Mummy Project was scanning hundreds of mummies, but King Tut was one of the very first in line, once again moving regally ahead of his countrymen in death, just like he had in life. And to capture the most intricate, eerily detailed structures, Tut's head was scanned in insanely precise slices measuring just 0.62 millimeters thick. By putting hundreds of these cross-sections together, kind of like stacking incredibly detailed slices of bread, the team was able to create a fully three-dimensional virtual body. It provided a level of data that an old-school X-ray simply couldn't touch. But get this, the night of the scan, it almost didn't happen. The elements themselves seemed to protest. The wind stirred up these ghostly dust devils, and dark clouds completely veiled the stars. Swirling sand actually got stuck inside a cooler fan, and the $1 million scanner just quit. One of the guards nervously joked it was the famous curse of the pharaoh. Thankfully, they found substitute fans, saved the day, and managed to return the king to his tomb just a few hours later. And finally, part 5, unearthing buried mysteries, what the scans actually revealed. Now, to understand the 2005 scan, we have to jump back for a second to that 1968 X-ray conducted by an anatomy professor. That X-ray provided the first major bombshell, proving just how bad the physical damage from Carter's era really was. Beneath the hardened resin on his chest, they found out that Tut's breastbone and front ribs were completely missing. This instantly fueled intense speculation. Was it battle damage, a chariot accident, or was it murder? This is where forensic reconstruction changes the game. By using this precise medical data, a team of specialists in radiology, forensics, and anatomy can probe ancient secrets without laying a finger on the actual fragile body. That 2005 CT scan gave them exactly what they needed to build a highly accurate virtual model of the boyish pharaoh. It helped definitively answer how old he was at death and brought us way closer to understanding exactly how he died. And that brilliantly highlights the central debate of this entire chapter. It's the constant balancing act between the pursuit of scientific evidence and the duty to respect ancient funerary traditions. On one hand, science gives us these undeniable hard facts, busting myths about his missing ribs and cause of death. But on the other hand, the rough treatment by Carter's team back in the 1920s is a stark reminder of what happens when ambition just completely overrides respect for a resting place meant to last for eternity. So, considering the absolute wealth of knowledge we've gained about Tutankhamun's life, his wild family history, and his mysterious death, I want to leave you with this. Where do you draw the line? Is scientific intervention always necessary to unearth our shared human history, or are there times when these ancient resting places should just remain entirely untouched? It's a huge question, and it's a debate that continues to shape modern archaeology today.